All right, guys, thanks for joining us back on the Stand the Gap podcast in partnership with the Mississippi Conservative Coalition to become the Youth Conservative Coalition of Mississippi. We are focused on the 18 to 40-year-old voters in the state of Mississippi. We are calling on Americans to take responsibility, stand up, fill those gaps, need to connect the dots. This is going to be a place of having the hard conversations. Are going to, do interviews, bring guests on, have conversations on life, liberty, all the things. So please continue to join us. Right now, we're going to jump a little bit into 2027, looking into the future. Several races going on right now. Election time is going to be here before you know it again. It doesn't stop. It's really neat in Mississippi. It just feels like it never stops. I think they have it set up like that on purpose. But going back to last year, the Neshoba County Fair is a really big, they call it America's last, house party, because it's kind of a place where, it is kind of back to the roots of soapbox, stand out, in front of a crowd and give your spill, tell them why you're running. This is a place where politicians and elected officials have gone forever to get in front of Mississippians in a crowd, in a public forum, and just give their 15 minutes of why they're the person for the job. We saw Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann throw his hat in the ring fairly early about running for governor. He is obviously termed at the lieutenant governor position, so he is hinted at a statewide office, and obviously the only other thing is going to be governor. So he's in the running, if you will. Auditor Shad White, I think, was one of the first ones to really come out after that, because him and Delbert were kind of back and forth with each other. One's, I guess you would say, more establishment. I think, Shad probably comes off as the more anti-establishment. Shad has done some work, obviously as a state auditor, some good work for much of the year. Last year, he had his sights on AG Lynn Finch, and seeing what she was going to do as a replacement for possibly Reeves, and then Governor Tate Reeves getting moved up in another position. So in Mississippi, there's so many ways, and there's rumors of people moving here, moving there, and just the system. But Shad went pretty hard at Delbert, called him DEI Delbert, just because Delbert blocked some legislation Shad was trying to get passed about DEI programs in the state of Mississippi, specifically on Mississippi college campuses and universities. So anyways, Delbert was kind of standing in the way of that. Shad was a proponent of it, and so that's why they're just having their thing now. Hosemann, who will be 81 when the next governor is inaugurated, which is up there. Don't get me wrong, it's not the age, it's just the amount of time in office that kind of creates a concern for me. But we decided, if we're still where people want us to work for them, we want to keep working for them. We're term limited on this one, so it'd be in other offices, another state office. I'll put it that way, Hosemann said. So that was last year. Obviously, we kind of know where he's at now. They've been taking cracks back at each other. In terms of the statewide office, like I said, the governor position is really, the only one. He's hinted at wanting to be in the U.S. Senate. But again, it's just really, it would take a lot of, people going here, moving there. And some of the other, I think, movers and shakers in the race that we saw early on were Tommy Duffy. He's big into gifting and investments into Mississippi universities. Let's see, 26 million to Ole Miss, 15 million to State, 30 million to Southern. So he's got the cash to do it. One of the things that reporter put out and noted very clearly, or I can't remember who it was that people are going to jump in these races at different times, just kind of depending on what your finances look like to run the race. Like, a guy like Duffy who is, just write a check for his own campaign and start running, he doesn't have to announce yet. He can announce, next year, drop a bunch of money on ads and just kind of be done with it. Somebody who needs to do fundraising, somebody who may not have the size of a war chest as his, is going to have to start a lot sooner. And then if you see somebody like that come in, I don't think he's officially, and I haven't heard that, other people are going to be like, never mind. He just wrote himself a check for $15 million in his account. Like, you can't compete with that. So you'll see some of that clear up. He may get behind somebody. There's a good, I think, factor of being a businessman, coming into the scene for it. So that'd be interesting. Mr. Gerard Gibert was also noted as being a possibility. Haven't seen that officially yet. And then obviously who we know, Agriculture Commissioner, Andy Gibson, has announced, and he's obviously pretty hard on the trail right now. He told reporters at the fair last year, he was considering a run. We obviously know he's, like I just said, he's doing that now. But he's Trump's still going to be popular in 2027. All these people are kind of aligning themselves with Trump because that's just kind of the safe thing to do, and especially like state of Mississippi. Lynn Finch has also, like I said, the name was floating around for governor. So there's a lot of names here, and a lot of things could really, could happen because there's a lot of people that have been mentioned. But I don't, I think it's going to end up being more of a, beat each other up thing, probably. I hope not, but it might be. And then it really depends on the other seats, too. So, like, if they're, lieutenant governor seat, some of the appointed places where people could go. I'm going to give it up to Russ Latino over at Magnolia Tribune. They did a great job at covering some of this. I did get a chance to hear Commissioner Andy Gibson at the Conservative Coalition meeting a couple weeks ago. Look, he's about as genuine as he can get, and they have genuine Mississippi for a reason, because that is Andy Gibson's persona, and he tries to tell you exactly what it is, and I think people like that about him. He's really big about calling out people that say they have an R by their name but maybe not be that. He believes in a healthy Mississippi, raising your kids at home on a farm. His son is super involved in organizations like Turning Point and getting the youth engaged. So that's great that he's showing his kids this stuff too. Like I said, genuine Mississippi is a big deal to the Ag Commission. That is their form of showing you all the things good about Mississippi, growing in Mississippi, raised in Mississippi, built in Mississippi, made in Mississippi. That is just the place to find it. Agriculture is Mississippi's biggest industry. It's a $10 billion industry. Commissioner Andy Gibson says we can double that. It's the biggest employer in Mississippi as well. Found out that we are the 6th largest manufacturer of chicken in the USA. Apparently, if you are eating Chick-fil-A chicken, it's coming from right here in Mississippi. So that's kind of cool to know, I guess. But one of the big things that Commissioner Gibson was very fond of, and I thought was really, really neat, was food supply and food security, and how important that is for the future of Mississippi. So, when you're buying your produce or food from a local farmer, you actually there's no sales tax on that, so that's pretty cool. Encourage you to shop local, buy local from your farmers. Um, we can, so again, like I said, he thinks we can double that 10 billion to 20 billion, mainly by not importing so much stuff. So there's a lot of manufacturing things associated with agriculture. We're buying a lot of soybean oil, I guess. So it's basically, not importing food and growing it ourselves or making it ourselves, and things that we're importing that we really shouldn't have to be importing. And then, how Mississippi is in such a fertile crescent, for lack of a better term, that in 20 years, really the southeast and Mississippi specifically is supposed to be really great for agriculture. So we are in position and in line to where Mississippi will be one of the most food secure, food dependent places in the country. As he said, agriculture is God's design, and I can't disagree with that. From Genesis 1, he created it all for us to go and garden and take care of the earth and prosper from it. And it's really neat, when you think about it like that is a position, and you can tell he really lives it. Like, God has entrusted him with taking care of the agriculture of Mississippi and prospering into the future. And I think that is very commendable, that you see him really living that, and all he does with the Agriculture Commission and whatnot. He is very Make America Healthy Again. As a matter of fact, they have started the Make Mississippi Healthy Again, which is just basically finding better sources to find our food from, and making sure that those sources are, again, no vaccines in the animals, the chemicals that we're spraying on things. They actually started the Mississippi Farmers Marketplace.com, which is like a big farmers market online. You can go on there, you can find, certain things from certain farmers and where to get it from them. And again, you're not paying the sales tax on that. He is for homeschooling your kids. We'll talk more about those kinds of things when it comes around, because it is, a topic that is very close to our hearts. And like he says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And he is right. If we don't have a vision for the future of our state, the food supply, that makes me feel great, knowing that there's somebody that is concerned with that and is thinking that big. Like, we can grow our own food. There's going to be 3 different hubs in the state. They're going to be able to grow it, bring it in, process it the way it needs to, whatever needs to be done, and then ship it out. So, like, none of our food's going to be coming from anywhere else. Like, we can do it all here. We really don't need a whole lot. Like, we think, well, I can't get my whatever fast food place or whatever. Don't know. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about chicken, corn, like the stuff that comes out of the ground, not this processed junk, but the stuff we actually need, the stuff that's going to matter. And hopefully, in a few years, we'll see that is really just what we're eating mainly. Let's see. So Mississippi, like I said, the Southeast and the future of the water in Mississippi, it's because of the water. That's what makes it so special, is the water. And the Delta area specifically, where all it's supposed to drain to, is just supposed to make us a really in a good position for the future in food supply. Our kids are dependent on us. He said he had 4 reasons to get into politics, and I agree with him. I got four little reasons, why I do what I do. And well, we come to realize that, we don't do this for the money. We do this for the future. He wants to create a public safety task force for the state. So they've already got this going on at the fairgrounds with Capitol Police, multiple agencies in the surrounding areas. That makes it super safe while you're at the fair. That's why we haven't seen any incidents, because like you said, there people saw you can't come there and mess around, and you're not going to get some consequences. You're going to be held to the law. So he wants to do that statewide, just a task force that is a public safety task force. He said he would have sent the National Guard to Jackson a long time ago. He is into development. He is into medical freedom. He is into school choice. He is into protecting your land, our farmland in Mississippi. There's actually 1 million acres of farmland or property in Mississippi that's owned by foreign interests right now. Another topic for another day, but that's something to be a little bit concerned with. So, same thing on the local level. Several of the Senate races, we won't talk too much about this, but Cindy Hyde-Smith obviously running for another term. Let's see. Democrats in Washington have actually talked a lot about Mississippi and what's going on here. Mississippi, has long been a Republican state, and Democrats really think that, long believe that they have to really represent well in these small states to have any kind of advantage in the future, especially against Republicans. But that and President, Donald Trump's return to power have really made that harder for the other side. So we do see a lot more Democratic Senate campaign involvement from their committee, especially from the National Committee. The National Republican Senate Committee is also expected to spend a lot of money in our state because they want to make sure that we keep it red. And it was reported that Hyde-Smith had $1.4 million in her cash on hand for her campaign. So she's sitting pretty good right now. And again, people coming in and they're like, man, I can't run against that. She'll run ads against me. So, while that stuff's important to know, it's definitely not just a dismissive factor. There's definitely a path for somebody to come in and be a challenger. See, primaries are set for March 10th, generals November 3rd. As for Cindy Hyde-Smith, she's 100%, Donald Trump, Make America Great Again, he's already endorsed her. She touts pretty hard that, she can text President Trump and he responds to her. So hopefully, she's able to use that leverage. She defeated Mike Espy, a former congressman and attorney, on her last run. We do have another challenger against her, Sarah Adleka. I hope I'm saying that right. From Ocean Springs. She's a physician. She says she stands with President Trump to secure our borders, fight for Mississippi families. And also, she would work across the aisle to improve access to health care in Mississippi. She says, it's not so much that I disagree with Cindy's policies. I just feel like she could be doing so much more in the Senate to help our state. In a press conference, she recently called for Trump to send the National Guards to Jackson, as he did in Washington and Memphis. And she had signs on her podium, make Jackson safe again. So she is much for combating violence in our capital city. Andrew Scott Smith, a Florence resident, owns a pork rinds business and calls himself the pigskin politician. Okay. He announced his bid for U.S. Senate just hours before Smith's campaign's launch event. He did run for Republican nomination against Benny Thompson in 2024, but was unsuccessful in that run. Smith said she was challenging Cindy Hyde-Smith because she's become disconnected for her constituents. He also said he wants to focus on the fiscal future of the country and by phasing out Social Security and federalizing the national debt. On the Democratic side, Scott Collin, Priscilla Williams Till, Ty Pinkins has actually left the Democratic Party and started running it as an independent because he said he was just not getting the support from his fellow Democratic Party lawmakers. And he says that was a lot of the reason for his poor performance in the past election. Pinkins wrote that certain party leaders were gatekeepers who were trying to block him from advancing in politics. So that's his story, and he's sticking to it, and he's going to run again. Kudos to you, Ty, for sticking to it, I guess. All right, we're going to switch tunes here a little bit. We're going to bring it back local before we wrap up. Again, another article by Magnolia Tribune. They did a great job investigating this one. Some of you probably heard about it. It was kind of a hot issue, and it came about right after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The whole deal with Turning Point chapters on school campuses. So Clinton High School was kind of the center of a controversy. I think it even made national news at one point that basically, they were halting a Turning Point chapter from being started. They gave out several different reasons. Three main ones to be exact. First, that it was, too political, that wasn't a good idea for them to do something like that at that school. And then second, they said that a teacher had actually initiated starting the club, and that was kind of against the rules, that it has to be students that do it. And then the last thing that they said was that it was too late to start the club, that basically you have to sign up the club or organize it the year before for the next year, so it was just in violation of their policies. All of them are not good reasons. All of them raise legal questions, and we'll just kind of break down. Like I said, Magnolia Tribune did a great job at this. Follow them if you don't. So the Equal Access Act and Mississippi's 2022 SPEARS Act, these are things that allow students freedom of association in clubs and politics to get together, talk about those things, public policy, social issues. This is the way that they're able to, we want to create a young Republicans group of Pearl High School. You can do that, and you are allowed to do that, and you can't get told no. You shouldn't get told no. Second thing is, they were kind of worried that, it was a teacher was kind of the one that put them up to it. And even then, that doesn't, make sense, because, where the idea came from, like, as the Magnolia Tribune puts it, is constitutionally irrelevant. Humans are allowed to be inspired by other humans and exercising their constitutional and legal rights. Basically what that's saying is, we can have ideas, and just like give you an idea or spark something in you that gives you an idea and you go and do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that, the argument that they're trying to make, that it was executed by a teacher or trying to be set up by a teacher. The third reason on the timing of starting the club, well, there simply was no policy in place. They could never find a policy. Sounds like Clinton High School is really just trying to find a good reason. They made three up, and then they just threw them at the wall and just seeing what would stick. So yeah, it's saying that they didn't register in time, and that was kind of the main one that they tried to stick to. But as we mentioned, the policy doesn't exist, so none of that really could be found. And what it turned into is really they were just trying to silence these kids. They weren't wanting to acknowledge that somebody didn't like it, or maybe some of the administrators didn't like it. And so they said, no, we're not going to do that. Maybe it caught wind of parents, and there are some parents with different ideologies, and they said, we have a problem with that. This isn't a good time to do that. You're not going to do that. And so the school decided not to. Either way, all of them, none of them really, none of the explanations they gave really, pass any kind of, valid reason as to why they could stop this. Even if the teacher was encouraging them to do this, no one was forcing the kids to do it, and so I think I wrote this down somewhere that, like, if you basically, the teacher says, okay, like, that's a good idea. So the student says, yeah, okay, we're going to do that. And then the school says, no, you're not going to do that. So the teacher says, no, you can't do that. Well, the student can then say, okay, well, all right, end the topic. Never mind, I want to start my own group. And then go back and say, yeah, I still want to do it. But the school said, no, it's still a no, because we know where this idea came from. And, the students were like, I want to do it on my own. So you can't take away, where you can't take where possibly an intent came from and an idea came from and then try to connect it to that when the kid's coming to you directly on their own saying, I want to start this group. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Because the kid could essentially lie. It's like, I didn't get that idea from them. I have no, I changed my mind. Thought about it, and then I forgot about it, and then I thought about it again, and now I want to start a group. And how can you really argue with that? You can't, unless you're just BSing and you are trying to prevent them from doing that. But a third source told the Tribune that the teachers actually email became widely circulated. Not everyone who received it was happy about it or the organization that was starting. So it actually seems like parents probably got wind of it. Thought it was going to be too political, contacted the school. The school then told the teacher, hey, no ma'am. Teacher told the students then were like, hey, what's up, why can't we? Teacher said, you need to talk to the principal won't give any answers. The school wouldn't give any answers. The school was pressed by students, pressed by the Tribune. Finally, I think they came out with a statement, but it still wasn't very good on why the effort was being denied. So they're obviously just trying to put the blame on somebody else. I think they were trying to put the blame on the teacher. That wasn't going over very well. And again, when you look at these ethical, positions and what's going on in perspectives, you can think like, are they really trying to put on this teacher as like it was teacher led? And it just doesn't, none of it really as the Tribune says, pass the smell test. I would agree with that. So unfortunately, or fortunately, Clinton High School is one of these schools on our list that we would love to visit and speak with their students about any kind of organization they'd like to start or create. And how we can help them influence maybe some of the policies in their schools, and seeing how we can help them there, as opposed to just taking the school at their word, because it would have been a lot easier to just let them do it. Now everybody knows something's not right there. So no government official will ever openly admit that they said or did something that represents a violation of the Constitution, federal law, or state law. Instead, what you almost always hear is, well, we really wanted to help them, but they did not follow our unwritten process. Process is a great tool of an obstinate bureaucracy, end quote. Very well said. That is the way that they get around doing things. They say, that's not our process. That's not the way we do it. You didn't follow the process, yada, yada. We can find some kind of rule or some kind of way to make this happen. We could drag it out. I hope they do it. I'm going to reach out to some people and see if they ever did, if they need help, or what we can do to possibly help that happen, whether it's a Turning Point chapter, whether it's a youth conservative chapter. Like I said, we'll be working with them. We'll just be more involved and more fluent in the community, so we'll see these kids more often. Hopefully whenever they do come into town and they're doing events, we're able to collaborate, and depending on what the mission or agenda is at that time, go from there. So I think, with the whole Clinton Turning Point issue, is if we're creating these spaces, we almost create our own worst enemy. We almost are our own worst enemy. Would it have been too political? Maybe, possibly. But that's the point. Like, we're supposed to be encouraging these kids to have conversations and to, like, at the very least be there in a room with a couple adults, like, to navigate these things. And I get it where that becomes hard, and see what happened is they're like, oh, we don't want, teachers to get involved. We don't want this to become a thing. Like, okay, well, so that's what we're doing. That's what Stand in the Gap's doing, is we're gonna go and we'll have those hard conversations. We'll take the spears for the teachers. We'll take them for the administrators. If you don't want to catch the heat for this stuff, then let us come in and catch the heat for this stuff. But if you aren't allowing these conversations to happen, you're gonna call yourself out, really. It opens up, the conversation of what else are you guys doing? Are you pushing these sexually themed events for kids that are put out by teachers unions? Is there stuff going on in there that you don't want people to know about? Is that why you don't want kids thinking more freely or understanding where they come from and why? Is there a National Buy Day there at school, or National Coming Out Day? These are real holidays that are on calendars put out by the teachers unions. So I hope you pay attention that while we as Christians have to be open-minded to other people, we still have to stand firm in our faith and our principles, and not allow these things to be taught to our children. Like, that's not that conversation that needs to be had at school with the teacher or another adult. These are conversations when kids have questions about sexuality, they should be coming to their parents, not their educator or not their teacher at school. And if they don't have parents like that, or if they don't have parents at all, then we have to have true conservative, I feel like, professionals. In a setting where these kids are not being indoctrinated into these crazy ideas, they're not being told they're something else, they are not being normalized to guys using women's bathrooms, guys playing girl sports. The government is finally stepping in to take away funding from some of these schools where some of these things are going on. And y'all, thank God, because we have to take care of our little girls. And I don't even know why this is an issue, but it's become one. And God forbid any of this stuff is going on around here. Whenever you aren't allowing kids to have these conversations and you're saying nope, it's because you probably have something to hide. Um, Whenever people work with good ethics and when they start to learn that integrity that we were talking about earlier, it tends to bring the snakes out. They don't like it. They will be against it. You know, they will do anything they can to compromise you and your person and what you do, even by just a millimeter to get you to conform. And that's what happens with our young people, is that they are so peer pressured and influenced, you know, at that age by almost anything. And we are trusting, you know, other people to raise them, quite simply. We can get into that conversation another time, but yeah, I can't, you know, I just, you know, at this point, you know, I can't imagine not being a part of our kids' education and what we're teaching them. I just can't. And I would encourage you to start thinking about that too. You can teach them how to be a good person all you want. But if they're going to school and there's 20 other people that are showing them something different, you better believe what's going to happen. So, I don't say that to scare anybody. I just say that to say, you know, public schools and teachers are in a very tough position. I don't think we need a Department of Education. I think that they would be fine, and they honestly would probably get paid better. And, you know, Christian micro schools, I think, in you know, in the States are the way to go. And I think you're going to see a lot of that coming up soon. There's a lot of misinformation about school choice out there, but I'm firmly, you know, for it, because I believe that, you know, nobody knows better about our kids than we do, or than the parents do. And then there's, you know, the few, you know, probably more situations where, you know, kids don't have those guardians or people there for them. And that's where we have to make sure that we have trustworthy, you know, God-fearing, you know, Bible preaching people in our schools, 100%, teaching these kids that. Because, I mean, you know, if the kids doesn't have parents, like, he's probably not going to church, right? I mean, where else is he hearing it? You know, maybe going with somebody else, but which will kind of wind down to the last part of what we're going to discuss. You know, it's a broken world. We started kind of talking about what we're doing and Charlie, and I kind of like to end on that. Just on some of the lessons and you know, his life and legacy, and what does it mean to stand for truth in a broken world. You know, from people running for office to our teachers and our administrators, and just being parents. It means facing attacks, enduring hate, walking through persecution, getting called names. But it also means, kind of like what I said earlier about being empowered, it means knowing peace because you're rooted in God's truth. And you're standing firm with him, and it's hard for anything to knock you over, when you're there. Um, what happened with Charlie was like horrific. It was nothing short of that. He was he was killed just because of his conservative beliefs. Um, what he was preaching uh, on these campuses was, like I said, it was reaching millions of people, and it was reaching people that didn't like it. Um, as some of you may know, I've done some work in that field of politics, whatever. Um, God so clearly called me to that, at a young age, and I remember I was sitting in class and I was thinking what do you want? Yeah, like I had to decide, because I was getting to that point where I had to stop taking these general classes and switching majors, and I really had to decide, um, that I wanted to help people, and I wanted to be able to know a little bit about everything, and to be able to, I didn't think you could really help people if you were just I always felt like, man, if I'm just this, I'm never going to be able to reach out into these other areas and help people. And so I looked for the broadest thing I could, and found politics. And at first I started in criminal justice, because that's where I was like, well, that's where you help people. You're a protector, law enforcement, or whatever. And then I felt that same thing. I was like, man, I'm limited here. And so I decided, politics was what I wanted to do, because it just had its hand in everything. You had to know a little bit of everything, and you had the ability to help people and influence things. And if you didn't like this, if somebody didn't like that, in their field or in their area, you could know, and you could help them change it, or at least, show them how to do that, or how to, engage the system. So felt a bigger calling to that. I didn't understand, then what that calling would entail, and how dark that world could be. But I thank God all the time, as hard as it's been. And don't get me wrong, there's people that are in this world that are much more experienced and successful, and whatever you want to call it, than I am. But I've seen a few things, and I just thank God for the conviction He planted in my heart at a young age to do that, because it's been something I can't let go. There's I always say, if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. And I'll tell you, there's not a whole lot of money in it. It is 100% because you feel like you're doing what is right. And now, there's obviously, paying compensation involved with a lot of these things. Is, we have to be able to, take care of our families. But, I think a lot of times people get strayed. And, now for everybody, without turning it into, just a me show, which is by far what we're trying to do here. It's about all of us speaking, openly and honestly about what's affecting us, and what it really looks like, to stand as a Christian in truth in this world. Because, how far our culture has drifted. Everything seems so normal, to the everyday person, what we're seeing online, and the truth is it's not. We've been so desensitized with things that, as soon as we take a position on anything, things change for people. You can like or share a video, or and then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, I didn't know I've lost friends. Like I said, I've endured hate. I've lost opportunities. Probably lost jobs that, maybe didn't even realize I didn't get just because of work I had done in the past, or people I'd worked for thought I was doing the right thing. I've been slandered, accused of things that were meant to destroy my character and silence my voice, quite honestly. And it did for a while. It put me in a place where, like I said, you felt like you couldn't talk about one or the other in the presence of the other. And, you know, even when you're trying to do the right thing and, you feel like you're doing the right thing and like God's telling you the right thing, I still had people yelling at me, flipping me off, John, I'm no one special. I'm not famous. I don't have a massive following of any sorts. I'm just a regular person. But if any of that sounded, bad, just imagine what the weight carried by other people on like larger platforms is, like our pastors and teachers of these topics, and people like Charlie, who sacrifice daily to speak and live this out. Imagine how those people feel. Our politicians that are out there doing this daily. I there's a bit of you that kind of enjoys the pushback. You might ask why, and it's because I want Satan to be upset with me. When things come at me lately, I'm like, good. I'm good may not be the right word, but I'm like, okay, let's go. You want to come at my feeling that day, you want to come at my marriage that day, you want to come at my kids that day, you want to come at my work that day. Start your day in prayer. And Christians, we need to pause and consider this. If Satan isn't concerned about your life, maybe it's time to shake things up. I noticed that there's times in my life where, it may not have been that great, but it was pretty good in the sense of, Chris was getting fed, and, I was getting the things that I needed and wanted, and, I felt like I was content, but, deep inside, there's a huge hole, because you're constantly looking for, acknowledgement and affirmation. And the last thing you want to do is be disliked or hated or, not thought of. And, as a young man growing up who was, really trying to, do things his own way, the last thing you wanted was anybody to not like you, or to do the things that weren't popular. And let's face it, the things that weren't popular were living Christ-like and living in a way that was really glorifying him. And and I read now what Jesus himself said: if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. And I never thought about it then, but like, that was his jam. Like, God knew people were not gonna like me, and but he's like, don't worry, like, they didn't like me either. And I live in peace in that, knowing that I can sit here and I can talk to myself, for the next 10 years, as long as I'm talking about God. He's right here with me, and he's always with me. And as long as I'm doing it in love and we're trying to help people, and he will open doors and he will provide for us to do. Because truthfully, all I want is a better nation for, for my kids. I want a world where people aren't harmed by the culture and the lies, and for people to know that there's a better way through Jesus, and that eternal life is possible. That's what we tell our kids, right? Like Jesus came down for our sins, so those who believe shall live forever. And that was the promise, and it's there for us. I don't often share this stuff, too publicly, but it's time to, because I don't want people to shrink back in fear, and think that, well, Chris has always been pretty outspoken, or Chris is, this is pretty natural for him, or this is what he's supposed to do. No, this is what we are all supposed to do. This is what we are all supposed to do, and I'm not saying I got it figured out or I even got it right. But I want you to be bold. I want you to speak now. And hear me clearly. It is worth it. Everything that we're doing is worth it. Every cost, every attack, every side eye, everybody that thinks that this is just the thing. I hope every sacrifice is going to be worth it. And we must stand for truth. As Christians, we have to stand, and we must fear God over man every single day. And I fear God way more than I fear man. But man has a good way of trying to make you fear him, even the good men. And I think we should respect that to an end. But we should know that there is only one who really rules and controls everything, and that's the person I fear. I fear God. That's the only one I'm trying to impress. That's the only one that I care about, who thinks of me and what they think of me. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I always approach everything the way it should be? Nope. But I do know this, that, when I take a stand for something, I align my convictions with God's word, and that word is perfect. The Bible is perfect. It's all there. It's written out for you, plain as day. There's not one thing that you can't find in this modern world that is an issue that has not been explained or described or written for us as a map. It's always right. And as long as you stand on that, stand on Scripture, and you're always going to be on the right side. So, again, I'm not sharing any of this like scare anybody, but we have to remind ourselves of what happened to Charlie. It's not just some random isolated event. No, it's what it is. It's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call. Our nation desperately needs to turn back to Jesus, and I challenge you. I challenge you to stand for truth. Don't be afraid to proclaim the good news of Jesus. Be bold in your faith. Stand firm in what's right, and also remain open to conversation. Don't just shut people out because they think differently or because they are different. Bring them in. Bring them close. Have conversations with them. Don't be afraid, to be corrected or to be wrong, because we don't know it all. And look, y'all, someone was murdered because they stood for Jesus and for truth, and we have to carry that on. We have to continue to speak with courage, even when it's hard, even when people may not believe you or think that you're crazy or, just in a fad or whatever, like, you know, the same people that wished I was in a fad, for Jesus, a year ago, um, may not believe that, you know, it's finally happened. And that's okay. Um, like I said, I don't really have a choice anymore. And frankly, I don't think any of us do. We're just trying to find that thing or that place where we can help carry on, that legacy and, help preserve our culture. It's what we need. But I'll say this: pray for his wife. Pray for his kids. Pray for our country. Yeah, a lot of people are, changing their voter registration and have registered to vote. And that's moving the cause of conservative movement. And that's great. But I think my deeper prayer is that people would walk into church and continue to walk into churches for the first time and pick up a Bible and love their families and ultimately come to know Jesus because of what happened. And I feel like we should all be able to get behind that. Because of what happened, ultimately, I hope people come to Christ. Politics aside, it breaks my heart that, we still can't have that conversation. I take that back. I'll have that conversation. And I hope those people will join us, because just like Charlie, I think that they would answer the same. I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith. Not his organization. Not even his kids. His faith. Something you can't see. You can't spend it. He wanted to be known for believing. In God. That's all God wants. So we'll continue, and I want to end with some words from Matthew 5. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way that they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Don't be afraid. Some of y'all that I know personally I can't wait to have this conversation with you, because it's there for you too. And, I just always thought, if God can bring me, like, I'm gonna bring so many. I used to tell myself, like, if God could get me, like, man, I'd bring him so many people. And it was almost a foolish thing, because I knew, like, man, I want to work for God so hard, but I just love working for myself so much more. And I heard this today, like, God took the life that, I didn't want, I was tired of, and transformed it into something new. And if it wasn't for that, I would still be just trying. I'm still trying. But now I'm trying for the right thing, and, for my family. And, when things are better there, it opens up your world. It really does. So pray with your families. Pray with your spouse every day before you walk out that door. Stop and do it. Pray with your kids together, by themselves. Speak Jesus into your home. And be prepared, because the enemy will come, but rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. This earth is temporary, and it's just our job to bring as many people as we can home one day. And some of y'all are, I just think, man, like, if I'm gonna do this to encourage those people, and hopefully they're gonna turn around and they're gonna encourage way more people than I can. And if anything, it's just because they see that, oh man, there's this guy who, I don't have it all together, but I want to, I want to do my best, and I want to do it together, and I want to do it with, for my family and for my community, excuse me. And I want you to do it for your communities and for your families. And we'll do this together, and we'll have the hard conversations, and we'll have the easy conversations too. But let's face it, nothing good ever comes easy, and we live in a world that just likes a little bit of drama sometimes. So there will be things that are difficult to discuss, but it'll be the truth to the best that we know. We have several people from the media, from the churches, from the business world, from the political world, lawyers, paying attention to what we're doing here, to hold this accountable, to hold me accountable. I didn't decide to do this just on the whim that I'm going to set up in my home office and, begin some kind of movement. No, we, like I said, a decade in the making, and now we are finally to a place of listening to what Jesus really wants from us, and for me and for my family, and we will go boldly toward the light. And I would encourage all of you to do the same. There's going to be some really, really cool stuff that we're going to do that, I want to provide as much as I can and opportunity as I can for my people here, in my state, in my community, to come to know Jesus and to lead boldly and to step into these positions of leadership and to lead their families. So we are confident that the next generation is being led the same way, and we're just, until our good Lord comes back, we are making disciples, first at home and then outwards. So thank you, for being here. That was almost 2 hours of our first show. We won't run that long probably, but we might. We try to cover a lot today. We wanted to give you a broad concept of what we're doing and what we'll have going on. So hopefully you get an idea of that. We will be a little more directed. Moving forward, we'll probably cover 1 or 2 topics as opposed to 4 or 5. I just kind of want to give you an idea of what we will be doing. Like I said, we'll be doing national politics. We'll be doing local politics. We're going to be talking about things that are happening in our communities. We're going to be talking about, our nonprofit organizations and partners that are going to be helping us. The churches are going to be involved, and then a lot of great events. Our 100 high school tour that we have planned, starting with Clinton High School. No, I'm just kidding. Here we go. We don't have a choice. I don't think any of us do. If we would just listen, try listening. It's hard. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. But your life will get so much better. It'll still be hard, but that's when we're gonna be here. That's when we're all gonna be here together. We're gonna say, look, I know, like, there's a place for this. You know what I mean? There's a place for this. Like I said, we're not trying to replace anybody. We're not trying to, outdo anything. It's our responsibility. The enemy is like, you can't compare to that. Your videos will never be as good. You're not as proficient in this, that's what the enemy has been telling me for a long time. And I listened for a long time. And I got so tired of listening to something that doesn't care anything about me. And once I started listening to God and I gave my life to God, that's when everything started opening up. And that's there for everybody. It's amazing. You think you have it good now. You think you gave your life to God, when you were 15. Maybe you did. And maybe you are still, living great. And I love you and I appreciate you and thank you. Connect with us. Help us show other people. Don't keep it to yourself. I think that's what we want to keep God to ourselves, and we want to, like, I'm doing well, things are going good, like, I'll keep on praying like this, like, I'll give a little bit, and then something crashes, and we're like, and then we crash. Because we didn't realize that, our life isn't as bad as the world make it seem, as the world makes it seem to be. It's really just, again, our perspective. And if we looked out at God's perspective and what his plan for our life, nothing can touch you. No man, no weapon, no nothing can stop that or change that. And you'll see. Even if he doesn't, we have been blessed with beautiful children and have an amazing wife. You know, he's blessed me, and he's blessed you too. Now let's bless others. Thank you for taking this time. I know it was a long time. I hope you watch it in parts. I hope you watch it all. You might not. I'll be back next week. Thanks, guys. See you later.